All right, good afternoon. Deputy Chief of Police Leronne Armstrong, Leronne Armstrong. And today, unfortunately, we have to come back and share with our community what we've experienced today. At 12:47 hours, officers were dispatched to the 1900 block of 84th Avenue to investigate a shooting. Upon arrival, officers encountered 3 victims suffering from gunshot wounds. One of those victims was pronounced deceased on the scene. Another 2 victims were transported to the hospital. We've later been advised that the second victim has also been pronounced deceased. So today we have 2 homicide victims. This represents homicide number 77 and 78 of the year for the city of Oakland. But these aren't just numbers. These are people. These are people from our community that have lost their lives to senseless violence. This is a community that's dealing with trauma. That this doesn't end today. That the community members that live in this block and in this area have to live with the tragic scene that they've seen today of bullets flying in their community indiscriminately and putting everybody at risk. I feel terrible for the families of these victims because it's senseless. But this is connected also to just the ongoing violence that we've seen in our community. Even last night, 3 blocks away from this location, 60 rounds fired in a residential neighborhood. I've heard from those community members about how frightened they were, about the traumatic experience they had last night of listening to bullets flying through their homes and into their cars. The violence in this community must stop. I hear people talking about guns. The Oakland Police Department has been working diligently to get the firearms off the streets. We've recovered 40% more firearms than we've recovered last year at this same time. But it's more than just the firearms. It's the individuals that are willing to pick up the firearms and use them in our community. They have to put the guns down. I hear the voices of those that are in our community that don't feel safe. We are here. Every lead that we get, we're going to follow up on. So if there's information out there in our community that could help us solve these investigations, we need that information. This is going to take a collective effort by all of us to say that this violence is unacceptable. It is not acceptable for in broad daylight, in the middle of the day, for rounds to be fired in our community. Our children are home as a result of this pandemic. They're unsafe. We can't sit inside our homes and allow this to happen. And so I just asked our community to step forward and help us solve these cases.
So what's going on, Chief? Is there a gang war? Is it COVID? Can you connect some of these dots for us with the shootings that happened last night?
I think it's early in the investigation for us to determine what happened today. What we know happened today was there was a group of individuals out in our community and some confrontation happened, and that led to gunfire. I think our homicide investigators are on scene, and we'll follow up on all the evidence that we get to determine what actually led to this shooting. I will say that it still represents people's willingness to fire guns in our community, and that's where it's unacceptable. And so we'll be following up on all the leads that we've gathered so far, and hopefully community members continue to bring us information that'll help us better understand who was responsible for this senseless act.
Related question, I know there have been more patrols out in some of those hotspot areas. Are there also patrols because of the PSPS, where in areas where communities are going to lose power, it'll be darker?
Normally during a PSPS, usually we work collaboratively with the Oakland Fire Department to make sure we have resources in those areas where we might experience power shutdowns. So we have been meeting with fire, and we're prepared in case we have those shutdowns in our community, and they won't impact the resources that we have addressing our violent crime. So we've been planning for the last couple days for the shutdowns, and I think we can do both.
Is that a concern? Because lights usually deter crime.
Yeah, Chief,
we're going to stick with just the homicide and shootings right now.
Okay.
You said 60 rounds fired last night.
Yeah, 60 rounds fired, but 60 rounds fired doesn't describe the experience that community members are feeling. This is 60 bullets. Bullets don't have names. They're flying indiscriminately in residential neighborhoods. When I hear people in our community call me at 10 o'clock at night and say, Chief, there are bullets flying in our neighborhood, coming through my door, hitting vehicles in front of my home. That is personal for people. That makes people are frightened as a result of that. People are experiencing these. This is trauma, right? It's leaving a traumatic impact on our community, and obviously we want to bring this to an end.
Chief, we're also hearing that the victims are very young. We're talking 18, 19, 23 years old. These are young men who are just starting out in their adult life. What can you say to them?
Again, our ceasefire strategy has really been trying to directly communicate with these young men who we see have been at the highest risk of being involved in this violence. We understand that there are conflicts throughout our city that we're trying to manage. We're working with our Department of Violence Prevention to try to provide individual services and support so that it doesn't have to result in violence. And so that is a part of our strategy. Our community is at the table. And you'll see us continuing to use our strategy. I mean, it's been effective for 7 years. The reality is that this spike that we've seen in violence is something that's unprecedented for this city. I mean, we have really done well, and so but that really has been a partnership between the department and the community, and that's what it's going to take to resolve these issues.
And you touched upon the ripple effect it has, not just on the families, but actually the entire community.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in a community and you experience 60 rounds being fired in your community, or if you experience 2 people losing their lives in front of your home, that's going to have an impact on you. And we know that. And it's up to us as a city to address these issues, right? That support is going to be needed for these communities because this is a traumatic incident that doesn't go away overnight. When the cameras are gone, when the police cars are no longer here and the yellow tape is down, they're left with these experiences and the emotions that come with it. And so we also need to support our community on that side of it.
You say it was 73 and 74?
77 and 78.
What was it last year about this time?
We'll get those numbers.
We'll get you all the exact numbers.